So, my presentation is named Let Me See How You Do It. Playing puppets and dramatherapy with disabled children, adolescents, and adults in the autistic spectrum with associated syndromes. So, the method that I used in these circumstances, it was mainly asking how instead of why, because I thought that asking how is involving the client to be proactive, present, alive, and in leading position, and inviting the person to show how she does something is a very good entry in a balanced relationship. And the question of why might be asked later, maybe. So I had one group of 5 to 8 participants of adult women and one individual workshop. I created a puppet theater. The workshop lasted from October to June for several years, with the final presentation in June. And the sessions took place twice a month on Saturday afternoons for 3 hours for the group and 1 hour and a half for the individual workshop. People were aged from 10 to 50. You can see some of their difficulties, and I did these workshops from 2010 to 2018. So the setting, the short workshop setting is provided by a non-profit organization that is run by the families of the disabled participants. There are 7 workshops with different media. One of them was mine with puppetry. This organization is supported by local authorities that provide the workshop space for free. And our association conducts itself independently from the other professional departments involved, such as psychiatry, psychology, health, education, work. Yet we can have information if needed. So the process this is just an example of creating a big puppet with a head in form of a mask, with a model in a book, starting from a white mask and going to papier-mâché and creating a character. This was a fairy witch, and the model in the book is a prosperity goddess. The fairy witch is called Sophia, and she was one of the characters of the show. So the puppet fabrication, here you can see a second example. We started, of course, the first year we started with very simple fabrications, but in time, people learned to fabricate complex characters. So the first step is fabrication, then naming identity, speaking about as much as possible about the character, then improvising, playing, making small scenes. The second step is from this improvisation to build a scenario, then to imagine a scene with decorations and finding sounds and music, and finally preparing for the third step to show a presentation. So the individual workshop was M, a young 10 years old boy with autism, myself, the art therapist, and an internship student. It was very good to be by three because this offered very interesting opportunities for transference and for playing. M can speak some words, but he mostly likes being silent. He was presented to me by a music therapist in a former group as agitated, destructive, non-collaborative, and he was oriented to puppetry to try something with little hope of integration. But in the puppets workshop, we adopted a new and different method of welcoming him. We offered him to be there without asking him anything else than, how are you today? Do you want to do something? Do you want to play? He did not respond and needed the first 30 minutes of the workshop just to go around, observing, touching objects, puppets, toys. And we let him do this. We did not insist and just cooperated when he came to it by himself. He did not like fabrication, but very much liked playing. He did not want to speak, but liked hearing our sharings and verbalization of the playing. So this lasted for one season, October to June. He was always very happy to come to the workshop and didn't want to leave quickly. At the end, he embraced me and the student before leaving definitively, and this was a very special attitude for him. He did not participate at the final celebration. His mother did not accompany him to this opportunity, and he never came back. I don't know why. I regret it. So, just an example of what we did with him. We played with the doing, with action. So, trying to get him active and involved, working on spatial temporal organization, and finally on communication and collaboration. So here you can see decorum from one of our puppet theater shows with windows, and we propose him to watch how behind someone moved a puppet in the light. So he was very interested, and he spontaneously moved around to see before, to see behind, and try to touch himself. And finally, he came to play with me while our student was the spectator of the theater, and M was very, very interested about how he could act the light, the puppet, the action, even without speaking. So, just a few words about our approach. It is a humanistic, non-directive approach, creating a free area which was very important for me because I thought that This kind of method needs some distance to medical or social settings, as well as family and friends. The main clinical goal was to develop autonomous creativity, self-esteem, and positive group relationships. It is a humanistic theory who is at the basement, but the method I used was eclectic, combining humanistic, psychodynamic, and developmental theoretical references. Person-centered non-directive approach by Rogers, playing and transitional phenomena by Winnicott, art, creative process by Didier Ancieux, and developmental and attachment theories, Bowlby and others. So the very important point is focusing on each person. The scene was no curtains. We did not have a border to our playing. It was just the space. And this no curtain scene is acting in an inclusive way, because the participants like to be seen in their art creation and not to have to hide behind a puppet theater. And of course, we had as basic art reference a lot of books, and also visited some shows with contemporary puppets art creation, which is using visible manipulation of the objects. So this classifying of the process by steps needs to be combined with dynamic vision in a comprehensive pattern, as our functioning, the human perception, affective dynamics, cognition, and behavior are constantly interacted in and between individuals. So at any time in the workshop, we could go back to refabricate something, or even in the first step, with fabricating, we still used to have some time for playing. Then, the puppet in the therapeutic process is also the symbol of the being me but not me. So identifying and projective mechanisms are very strong, and even without verbalizing, it is possible to work with this. A long time is necessary to get some distance for those who need to achieve a higher degree of autonomy, as for instance people with Down, as well as for those who need to develop a deeper contact, like people with autism, for instance. Here is at work the reference to the Jungian theory, helping the individuation process from the leaning against archetypal and cultural patterns to advancing to build personal identity and expression. Another main therapeutic goal is to improve the ability to express and represent a conflict in a metaphoric way, and to solve the conflict in the storyboard and in playing. It was interesting to note that in the first times, none of the adult participants would accept to play a negative or violent character. I had to do it myself, and it was helpful as it illustrated the distance, the gap between my bad guy and myself as an art therapist, a good mother. So this allowed them to imagine bad characters without identifying to them. And finally, the transfer diffraction, which is a concept developed in this book, is analyzed in some group theories presented in Pratiquer les médiations en groupe thérapeutique. So this means that in a group with an art therapist and an assistant or two, a student, the transference is playing between each one of the members of this group, of this company, theater company, because the principle was that everybody was a member of a team, the art therapist and the student creating themselves puppets and playing with the team. So, in conclusion, art and dramatherapy with puppets offers powerful modalities and specifically for people who are suffering of cognitive impairment or who are disabled. It is very useful to define the therapeutic goals in a holistic, eclectic approach. Please note that all the illustrations presented were with the author's consent. Here are a few references. Mainly French references because the English ones are easier to find, I think, on the web. And let me thank you for hearing me, and let me tell you goodbye. I am Nasty Croco, and you, what is your name? So, this was a short illustration of this work. I have to say that the participants to this work were very happy. The participants were very happy to be able to be part of a theater company, even if some of them were very conscious about the therapeutic goals of this method. Anyway, inclusiveness is a main principle of starting a good relationship with people who have difficulties to communicate, because when we are doing things together, like in real life, verbalization is not so important. And if we do together, I mean, if we play and create in the same frame, in the same setting, each one its own role and character, this is very much helping to improve their self-esteem and pleasure to participate. So, thank you.